Now, let's go to Rwanda for a bit. Jeanette Bayisenge, the Minister of Gender and Family Promotion, has said that Rwanda has a long way to go to end gender-based violence because the majority of women still support wife beating. Still support it. Yani, the women are the ones supporting. 65% of surveyed women said wife beating was justified under certain circumstances. 18% of women who were asked said a wife should be beaten when she has not cooked well. Only 2% of surveyed men agreed. 31% of women said the wife can be beaten if she has, an argument with her husband, and 6% of the men agreed. Why would you think that that is okay? And I think it's because we've normalized it so much. Now, in my community where I am from, it's so normal to the point that if you would ever go home and tell your aunt, your mom, or your family members and tell them, I can't believe I'm amenipiga, I can't do this, they tell you, it's just beating. So you've been beaten and now you think, no. In fact, in other countries, they say that if you're not beaten, that you're not loved.
Yeah, yeah.
Who taught us these twisted things?
Patriarchy.
What are you talking about?
It's absolute patriarchy. Let me give an example that's a bit morbid. And rest in peace to the young lady who, it was in the news, she had a boyfriend in the same estate and he allegedly murdered her and now he's on the run. It's not as publicized as a couple of months ago, there was a female cop who killed a guy in a lodging. Remember? It was news.
Yeah.
It was on the papers. It was the first story in every news because there is absolutely no way a woman can do that to a man. It is patriarchy, and when we say that, it means it is inculcated in our minds that women are subservient to men, not even in their thinking, but also in the respect that they should be accorded to. You look at even the ministries. Women are bundled together with children and people with disabilities because we are seen as people who do not have those certain capabilities. So when a society allows for a man to put his fist on a woman, the women they are raised to believe that this is the norm. But unfortunately, it's not.
So now then, maybe my question would then be, Cindy, that maybe it's been, what you're saying has been going on for a while, that now it's, because according to this study, 30% of women accepted almost
because
65.
That is how they've been brought up.
And
to
yet,
believe.
6% of the men, only 6% of the men asked, supported this story. But anyway, that's really not what I wanted to talk about. When I read the details of this, study, I went deeper to the questions that were asked to these women, and I found out that perhaps it could also have been the framing of the questions that led to such a high percentage of women supporting violence against themselves. Because when someone asks you if there are certain circumstances that can allow for you to be beaten, anyone, if you ask anyone this question, having been raised in Africa the way we have been raised, even us, when we were growing up at our parents, when you ask them now if there are situations that can allow for parents to
put your hands on your child,
yes, to beat their children, there is a way, if you ask that question, then it will not sound like the morbid question that it should be.
So you think it was taken out of context?
I
really actually do.
Quach.
I actually really do think that in this particular instance, maybe it is a reflection of what's happening in the society, yes. But I still think that even how, the thinking and the framing of and if you're familiar with the research, you do know that sometimes how you frame your question will determine what answer you get.
A leading question, yeah.
Yes, when you
Quach,
ask. Yes.
Yeah, a leading question. I was just about to say, I'm glad you said that because I did not manage to find like the full questionnaire. But the first thing I saw when I saw that headline and those statistics was I want to see the actual questionnaire, the questions that were asked, because no one goes into a questionnaire and just asks, are you okay with being beaten? At least you start with your name. Have you experienced gender-based violence before, etc., etc. By the time you come to this, also the disparity between 65% of women are okay with being beaten in case they don't cook well versus 6% of men. That as a society, that disparity already tells you there's something, you know,
There's a
seriously
disconnect.
wrong there. There's
Yeah.
a big disconnect there. So I would love to see the full study and go through it. But of course, patriarchy is still a huge problem. I think with Rwanda, it's probably very surprising because they tick the boxes when it comes to representation. Their parliament is 54% women.
Right.
They're very, very forward thinking when it comes to women empowerment, at least in policy. But that means that clearly it's not seeping into the actual culture of the people if then you're still saying it's okay to be beaten, but your parliament is still one of the ones with the highest female representation. So I would really like to interrogate this more, and perhaps maybe they release the full study and we can see how we got to 65% of women are okay with it, but only 6% of men are okay with it. And what are the incidences of gender-based violence? Because then is it 65% or is it 6%? You know, there's so many disparities, so many disconnects with this study. But I do agree with Cindy that women's pain is, it's not that big a deal as it should be. It's
you're just like
a thing to
children
brush
and
off.
persons with
Just
disabilities.
a thing to brush off. Hopefully we get to see what the full story looks like and we can have a better grasp of it.
Yeah, because initially when I saw the story, I remember, I wasn't even really that shocked because we've seen these stories circulating over the past few years. You know, we've had of Uganda. You guys heard of Uganda, right?
Yes.
I know you've heard about it all these years. Yeah. And you hear about people from different, even just here in Kenya, you know, I remember I had a house help who said the same thing and said that, you know, Bwanangu kama hanichapi hanipendi. I was like, what are you talking about? Where did this come from? It's been normalized to the point that we don't even see that it's wrong. We think that, oh yeah, there are certain instances where it makes sense and it's justified if a man puts his hands on a woman. But, you know, I don't even know. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we had. That's all the time that we had. If you're a young woman, okay, who is in a relationship and is experiencing domestic violence, please seek help. Please seek help. You have so many centers that are there to assist you. There's so many numbers that you can call and you can get help. Cindy, you wanted to add on something?
No, I was just saying, always look at the red flags, and then also as women, let's give women good advice when it comes to toxic relationships.
Please
when you're a mother, raise responsible sons.
Yes. No stories of vumilia.
This
vumilia story.
Usivumilie. Anyway, so thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Kwach. Thank you, Mariam. I really appreciate you guys. 5 years, by the way. So thank you. Thank you
Cindy
so much.
has been here for 8.
Cindy has been here
Oh my God.
Cindy has been here for 8.
8 years.
I'm part of the